DJ Council. I view the world through the lens of having been followed by a white clerk as a child while shopping in a five and dime. I'm a retired police executive and own UN50, which gives guidance on surviving interactions with police.
I'm Harmony Chavis, and I view the world through the lens of one of the most misunderstood and diverse generations in our nation's history. I'm a social worker and a believer of radical kindness and love as modalities of healing.
My name is Andrew Council. I view the world through the lens of a generational camera phone. I wake up as a black male and go to bed as a black male. I am surviving this never-ending court case we commonly call life in the best way I know how.
All right, so thank you very much for those that are coming back and listening to us again, and for those of you that are new to UN50, just a little bit about what we do. Started in 2015. We started this business to help people and how to safely interact with law enforcement. And the primary thing is want people to know their rights, but our goal back then, now, and in the future is we just need people to get to the house. But we not really caring about you liking the popo or hating the popo or how you feel about popo in this moment. It is about you going home, period. And so that's what UN50 is about. And then we started a podcast to talk about things that kind of intertwine with law enforcement, but also just other issues to also make sure people understand it's bigger than just law enforcement. This issue is not just about popo. Hold them accountable, hold them responsible, but let's just talk about some of the things that are beyond that. So tonight we have an educator, LaManda Pryor, on to join us and talk about, education and the work that she does and her perspective as an educator. And we'll get to her in just a moment, and I'm really excited about it. I am a child of an old school teacher. So I my love for teachers is real, and always have said, and more than once, teachers should be the highest paid people in this country, because the president can't be president unless somebody teach him how to spell president. That's that's just backward. Yeah, exactly. One of our co-hosts, Harmony Chavis, wasn't able to make it tonight. She's making that dollar, so I get that. So she's okay. But my nephew, Andrew Council, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing well. I'm just trying to stay holistically balanced.
Balanced. Yeah. By the time this is put out on is released, you will have graduated from UNC Greensboro.
Oh, congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're all proud. All proud. He's going to stay in the Greensboro. There's no going back down to the country.
Yeah.
You're right. You're not right, Andrew. So once you leave, you leave.
Yep. I may go back when I turn 75, but before that.
It's a nice place to put your feet up in. No place to live. Yeah, I know, right? Cool. So, like I said, we have LaManda Pryor with us tonight, and she's a principal, and she'll give you some more details about that. But I wanted to bring this perspective in, and like I said, we talk about things that I feel like is bigger than law enforcement, can have an impact in people interacting with law enforcement. And what does that look like? What can we do as a community, and what can we do as a Black community when it comes to educating our kids? And hopefully those of you that are regulars and listen to us, you would have listened to our last podcast that we released with Dr. Waleed. And LaManda, one of the things he said, we all know this, but he has spent some time in prison. He has his PhD. He's been out of prison since 1997, I believe. And he's a doctor, has his PhD in counseling and those types of things. And one of the things he said, and we know this, again, we all know this, is the literacy inside these walls of prison. People are going into prisons and they can't read. And he actually rattled off, for those of you that listen, he said the three things that are pretty consistent inside the prison walls are poverty, lack of education, and mental health. And that's what's inside the walls. And I think we also know that most of them look like Black and brown folks. So, LaManda, you have been in advocating for children for almost 20 years. And so just kind of you're currently a principal at a charter school here in Durham. So just kind of go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, like you said, I've been in education now for actually 22 years. And I started in Durham Public Schools, went up to Syracuse, New York for a little bit. Then I came back here and been at a charter school now for 5 years.
Mm.
And everywhere I go, I always make sure that I am inside of a school that serves predominantly Black and Brown students. And the
Wow.
reason I do that is because I know and I feel that they need people who really understand them and good leadership. They deserve it and they need it. And so one of the things I did when I started my career is I understood the need for it. And I said I was going to dedicate my life to do that. I mean, I've been offered several times to leave that particular population, but that's not my choice. And
Mm.
that's one of the things I think that we do need. The great leaders that look like them need to stay with them.
Right, right, right. Wow. I mean, we just, if you listen to Dr. Waleed, LaManda, you just said something that he just kind of talked about. You're walking your walk.
Right.
You know what you were put here to do. You're like, nope, I don't need to go nowhere else. I know where I'm supposed to be.
No, it's
And then
supposed to be.
I mean, I just appreciate people recognizing what the spirit put where he put you, where he put you, and what he told you to do.
I think I was kind of born into it, BJ. My dad been involved in
Yeah.
community work for many years. And
Yes.
so from a young girl, I've been involved with the community and just understanding that I always believe I am my brother and sister's keeper. And so
Yes.
I just try to give back.
Right. Yeah, she mentioned her father's name, who is Harold Chestnut. He and I worked together at the when I was at the Durham PD, and I always give him a hard time. He's a good man. He's always trying to do stuff for the community, and so I love Mr. Chestnut. One of the things in your description, and I want to. Oh, let me. Sorry, I got a question I usually ask folks in the beginning. We have all survived 2020 and COVID. So having done that, who are you now, having gone through that? And still, we're all still going through it, but at least the year of 2020, who is LaManda on the other side of 2020?
I think I'm more grounded. Before 2020, I was doing and trying to be everything. I was in every organization, well, a lot of organizations, not everyone, but a lot of organizations. I was never could say no. Some nights I was tired. I was up to 2 o'clock, still trying to do my work that I was doing, and just being all over the place. But when COVID hit, you had to stop.
Right.
And in that stopping, I became more reflective of who I am as a person. And I listened to your nephew say that, that holistic. And I really began to better myself holistically, because if I'm not good, then I can't pour into anybody else. And so I think I'm a more reflective person, understanding who I am, my purpose, and being able to say no, learning to say no.
And I can appreciate that. Yeah, yeah, that's kind of where I am a little bit too. It's like learn how to say no and take care of yourself and be
Take
like,
care of
okay,
yourself, man.
yeah, because you cannot help anybody else if you down. Can't help nobody else if you down.
No.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. So I wanted your description that you sent, and folks will be able to see this on when we do the show. You describe yourself. You thrive as a transformational educator.
Mm-hmm.
To kind of explain that, what does that mean to you? And when people hear that word, what does that mean as an educator?
Well, ironically, I think a lot of educators who are doing this work kind of understand what I'm speaking of, because my education career, I grew up in like Title I schools, and Title I schools is based on your lunch number. So you have a lot of kids that come to you in poverty, and those schools can be tough. There's a lot of different challenges that goes on in those schools. And so I think I kind of fell into that work. I had a great mentor, and I always give Rod Teal credit, because when I came up, he was already a principal, but we learned how to do the work to transform schools that often have a lot of challenges. And I say I fell into that work because that's one of the things that I've been recruited for since I left Durham Public School the most. And it's always, for me, it always goes back to knowing the people you serve, understanding your community. And so when I went to Syracuse, I finished a program that actually specialized in transformation principles and leadership. And so now I have taken taken those principles that I already had learned just on the job, put it with some book work, and then now I just kind of implement it all the way through. And
Wow.
transformation is just that, just going into schools, kind of taking them from where they are and trying to change a few things to make them great.
Wow. Well, you know what? I can see why people want you to come back to Durham Public School. I mean, if that's what you're doing, to try to, transform
I
some of
don't
the
know.
schools.
Durham Public School probably wouldn't want me now because I'm kind of radical.
So she radical.
I'm not gonna stay quiet on things I know and policies that are not good for children.
Right. That's what it. Yeah. Well. Yeah. But that, you know what? You do that stuff outside. Rattle that cage outside, though. You know what I'm saying? Rattle that cage outside.
But I mean, they do. Everyone does good work. Everyone's trying to do their best.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
get me wrong. Durham Public School is a great place.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but yeah, I get that, and I know they are. There's a lot of good work going on in these schools and difficult work. I think what I want, you would, when we talked, when we was trying to get you to, when you said yes to coming on, and you had recently, you were in a community, you guys were doing something, and some gunshots were going off or something like that.
Yes, it was shortly after Christmas. During right before Christmas, and we were lucky that we had a community partnership that gave us enough toys and clothes and gifts for over almost 100 of our students in the building. And so we decided right during COVID to be a good idea to jump on a couple of buses, my staff and I, and we was going to deliver those gifts. Right. And for me, I'm from Durham. I'm from the community. I love my people.
Right.
So, but this is the most disturbing I have ever been because we were delivering to a particular neighborhood in Durham, and I don't guess they won't put them in glass.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
But we had jumped off the bus, and I was like, everyone, let's come take a picture. And as we was taking the picture, a young man was shot within feet from us during the broad daylight, and it was like 12:30. And we believe, allegedly, that the person who did the shot came from behind our bus and sped away. And that was the most disturbing to me because, number one, I'm disturbed because a young child, we just saw a young child get shot. Right. Number two, I felt like I may have put my staff at risk, going into community, Lord forbid something would have happened.
Right.
And number three, I was just, it was just disheartening because other young people were out there. Yes. They were out there doing great. And it was just reality kind of set in that this is what we deal with. This is where we are right now.
Yeah. So I wanted to bring that up because I'm also wanting you to kind of talk to us about, or hopefully folks that are listening, that incident, excuse me, children are seeing that, obviously. And so how do we as a community, BJ saw a kid get killed yesterday. So Ms. Pryor, I ain't got my homework. I ain't got no homework. You know what I'm saying? So how do we have that conversation? What is it that we need to do to help that community? What does that look like to be able to say, okay, we got to deal with BJ because she lives in a community where she probably sees that more often than, she needs to. So what do you do? What do we need to do, LaManda?
First of all, we have to just admit that it's real. And we have more kids that are coming into our building every day. Either seeing trauma or even experiencing trauma. And we have to realize that younger and younger, I serve at a K-8 school, and we have to make time to deal with that. So when I say that social emotional learning is so important inside the school that it needs to be included in your everyday instruction. Mental health is so important in school. One of the things that I always work on is like my suspensions for me, and out of school suspension is a big thing that I don't like to do, and I don't do unless it's some of those you all know there's some things people just have to be out of school for. Right. But I'd rather deal with it in house because you're trying to change the mentality or teach them how to deal with what they're dealing with. So inside the school building, you have to have empathy. You have to include social and emotional learning from staff to students. And you have to still realize that the school should be the hub for the families, because you have to deal with them all. You have to deal with the families. You have to deal with the students. And so for us, what it looks like, even from the early morning, we do something called morning meeting. And that morning meeting can take on all sorts of things. It can be from just greeting each other to dealing with something that happened on the news, because the news right now is so powerful. I mean, they're just seeing all these things happening, all these murders. So it's such a conversation. And then you get people talking about, oh, I saw someone get shot last night. And so that sparks conversations, but it creates a safe haven for kids just to be able to start communicating. That's the first thing we do. And then the second thing we do is partnering them up with people in your building that they can talk to, because kids need to talk, but they need to trust you. They're the most untrusting people to be so young. So you have to gain that trust. And once you gain that trust, you can use that to, I always say, teach them how to deal with their emotions. Sometimes when you don't take the time to teach them, because sometimes they're not getting it at home, they're not seeing it because, some adults are still trying to learn how to deal with their emotions.
Yes.
So I think the school has to take the extra time to teach them how to deal with their emotions. So when they get out there, they're making decisions sometimes that's better. They have learned how to cope, because coping strategies is more than just, coping what's going on at school. We're teaching them coping strategies what's going on in society and at home. So it's an ongoing, it's ongoing. And then the mental health piece is so prevalent and so important. And when I say mental health, it has to be, I keep saying a holistic mental health, because we even do things like mental breaks, meditation. We're teaching our Black and brown kids how to meditate.
Yes.
Calm their own self down. I even start my own staff meetings with a minute of meditation. And that's just that, that holistic body approach with, learning, centering yourself. And so just teaching those strategies to kids from K-8. We do grateful journals. And you'd be surprised, you'd be thinking what they have to be grateful for, especially some of them that come from poverty. But when you have them begin to think of small things to be grateful for, it spins the picture in their head. And so it's so many things that we do for social emotional learning. It's a holistic approach. So society, I think, has to be open to really realizing that it is an issue and it's a problem. And I hate to say it, I know I'm probably talking a lot, but
no, you preaching, teaching.
Our parents need help. A lot of our parents need mental help. They need financial help. They need medical help. A lot of them need help. And what happens is they do the best that they can do, but sometimes they're falling short as parents. So when I say that the school has to come and be the hub of the community again, we're going to have to be the hub of the community. And so when I say mental health, we have a therapist that also can give some family help, going out, connecting, talking with families, and still knocking on those doors and trying to connect the families with the resources they need. Because until I can help heal the dad or heal the mom or help treat them, then it's hard for me to reach my students. So it's like a holistic, a whole family approach. And sometimes if a student comes to your school that day, like in my building, they might not get the lesson because they're not gonna be able to receive the lesson.
Right.
They can, if you just saw someone get shot last night, how can you really concentrate and you in the third grade?
Right.
But yet I'm gonna make you sit down in that classroom and listen. Are you really listening? It's funny, and I say this because I had a situation. It was just last week, and it was funny. A young lady who I have built a relationship with, she's in 6th grade, and she came to see me in my office. And for some reason, I was busy, and I was like, "I get to you, I get to you, go, I get to you." But when I got to her, it was just last week. It was almost the end of the day. She unloaded about a murder that she saw the day before, and she saw the body being picked up and put on the stretcher. And she was so upset about it, but she didn't want to talk to anyone else but me. Now, I have other people in my staff that some students have because they want to have a person. It's not always me. It's not always the administrator.
Right.
Whoever. But she needed to talk to me. And once she started talking, she unloaded everything. And I felt bad because I feel like I should have seen it earlier that day.
Right.
But
Right.
I followed up. So all day she didn't really focus. She wasn't focused. Her thing was, I can't focus until I get to talk to Miss Pryor. so,
Right.
so I'm teaching my teachers on how to pick up on those traits. And what do? You know?
Oh, Andrew, I mean, I got to take a breath. What you got, Andrew? Because it's just.
I have a lot. I'm just thinking about. First, I want to send my if I ever have a child, I want to send my child to your school. It sounds like it's like when I mention the word holistically, I try to explain like when I think about my mental health, physical health, I just use it in that one word. And I like how you were referring to the word in regard to the way that you were taking that pedagogical approach to the way that you teach and work within the school specifically. And I was also thinking about like the suspension thing that you mentioned before as well too was very poignant, because you mentioned about like suspending students, just sending them back home, and then like without any type of like asking what happened or any like just deeper insight about what happened. And you could be sending them back into the same situation as to why they caused the problem for them to get suspended. So that was just a lot. I was drinking.
You have to change a mindset, because I always say kids don't have to come back to your building. So you're not changing their mindset. All you're doing is creating a cycle.
Right.
And we know that behavior suspension is a big thing in the nation with Black and brown kids. It's a revolving door.
Right.
It's like they're in and out. So until you really kind of sit down and figure out, well, why are you creating this behavior? You're not going to change anything.
Right.
And so my thing is, I'm not going to give you what you want. We're going to sit here and figure it out. We're going to figure out why you keep doing this. And, it's not going to, sometimes it takes more than a day, a week, a month. I mean, you have to keep at it all the time until you really figure it out. And at my school, we like to figure out who that person can connect with. Mm-hmm. Because again, it may not be me. It could be my custodial worker. Could be, my bus driver. It could be, my dean. We figure out who you connect with. Sometimes it's the teacher you had the year before.
Right.
And ask them, look, can you just check in on them? See what's going on? Even if you just go by every day to say hello. Right. Let them know that someone cares, someone checking on you. You're going to be accountable to somebody. We're not going to we're not going to leave you. And just because you get in trouble today doesn't mean that we're not going to love you tomorrow. And we literally tell our kids we love them. Even the big kids, because you'd be surprised how many are not hearing those words.
Right.
Simply, we love you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not surprised, obviously the work that I do. And I think, LaManda, this is, see, I think for me, hearing you say that, excuse me, people need to hear individuals like you who are passionate, doing the work for the right reason, and being real about this conversation, what's actually going on, and who these kids are that coming into our school. I mean, we got this, kids go to school, blah, 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 but they coming in there with stuff that you and I ain't never thought about having seen. I mean, they done seen stuff that I still ain't seen, you know what I'm saying? And so for you to say that, and then, I go into these houses and I'm looking at folks don't know how to communicate to each other, yelling and screaming at each other. And here you go. You got a 7-year-old over here thinking that's normal.
That's normal.
You know what I'm saying? And they go to school. And so I guess, and so that brings me to, like I said, there's a lot of stuff been going on this week. There's a lot of stuff going on. So,
lots of things going on.
A lot of stuff. So there are two things, and I want you to kind of tell me how you feel about them. Okay, so we got Micaiah Bryant, who was shot by the officer. I'm not talking about what the officer did. That's a different conversation. Because everybody's got an opinion about that. What I'm gonna talk about Micaiah Bryant and then Isaiah Brown from Virginia. Okay. How is it that we have failed Micaiah, that she believes that in order to solve this problem, I got to pick up a steak knife? So what is that about? So now we got the popo coming in, and we know how that ended, right? And then you have Mr. Isaiah Brown, who was, I don't know whether you've seen it, but he called the police and said, my brother won't let me in my mama's room. That's why he called the popo. So the thing is, why are we calling the police to solve, you ain't my brother and let me in my mama's room? 32 years old. So why are we calling the government in with the
on-
possibility of doing some harm to you. So for me, that's why, you and 5 we try to, hold the popo accountable, hold do what you got to do. But let's kind of back that up with the stuff that you're talking about, LaManda. What's going on at the house? Why we got to have the government come in and solve my issues? Why is it that we pick up the phone, Black community? I need you to come in here and tell my brother, let me in my mama's room. Come on now.
The first case with the steak knife, and we know what happened.
Right.
I'm not talking about the police part, but
Right,
if you
right.
go back and look at the entire scene, and I was wondering, why would a male be out there not trying to stop the situation
No.
before the popo got there?
Right.
Instead
Is that the one that kicked at the girl that was on the ground?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. I didn't forget.
So
Yes.
when you look at the whole holistic picture, you're like, how did a situation escalate that far with females that even a male couldn't try to stop it, but was involved with escalating it?
Right.
That's the first thing. I don't know what led up to the young lady, grabbing a knife, and I feel for her family.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Um,
Definitely.
but I don't know what was so serious that led to a fight to create her to react with a steak knife. And this is one of the reasons why I try to teach my kids at a young age. So she was 16, I think.
16. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How to cope with your feelings and how to react. And it starts young because kids see these behaviors of parents reacting with anger, parents reacting with abuse, cursing, and they become products of their environment. So at school, it starts with teaching them. That's why I always, it seems funny, but teaching them how to cope, take a breath, breathe, walk away, trying to teach them and change that, what they have been ingrained in them. Because I know once they leave me, I know what the results can be when you get out in the community.
Right.
And it was so big that she felt that she had to go into this fight. But when you look at everyone around them, I mean, it was like we failed all them around there because everyone was in this disarray that really was a sad situation.
Yes. That it had to get to that point. Yeah. And then, like you said, and I appreciate that because I'm just looking at, I was looking at it from, how did she get to this point where you brought this whole thing? There was more, it was a lot of other people there. There was a lot of other folks there, and then so I appreciate that. Just you kind of widen my perspective on that.
I'm going to touch on this a little bit, and it may step on some toes. Where I was going is that we have some parents who make the situation worse. They teach their kids how to react that way. It's okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
and they come into the schools, and sometimes they try to tell you what the kids should have done and should not have done. And so when kids seem like that, it's okay. They learn that behavior is okay. My parents expect me to act this way. Or parents come into the schools and act that way. Children see you act that way, so they're gonna continue to respond that way. And so sometimes that's a learned behavior. And so parents don't understand that you can contribute to the way your daughter have reacted sometimes, or your son.
Right. Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but we see it. People see it all the time. Yeah, exactly. And so I see he did. Some people, they do say, they come in, they be like, if you're gonna get into a fight, you better win. They say that. I don't care. I mean, she had no business. I mean, it could be, people want people to fight now over words. I have parents telling their child to fight over words.
Wow.
Over words. That's a powerful thing. So you're teaching your child, oh no, she said something about my child, so she should have hit her. I'm like, it boggles my mind.
Yeah.
So if you have that type of, and I'm a K-8 school, and I'm sure I'm not the only one out there in the country. If you have that mentality going on, when they get to 16, that's what they do.
Right.
And it's a sad. It's like we are failing them. When I say we, I mean the parent. I'm a parent. We some of the parents we failing them.
Wow. Yeah, no, I mean, step on toes. I mean, we got to do we got to be honest about this issue.
Some parents have to understand and take accountability for that. And it starts early, parents. It starts. I remember my grandfather used to have a saying: "You let a child run till they get 6, and it's gonna be hard to catch them." So, I mean,
that's a good one.
I never understood what he meant, but I understand now because I mean, kids coming to kindergarten already with so much anger, and I'm like, you haven't even been on earth enough to be so angry, so you mimicking something. I mean,
wow,
it's crazy.
That's crazy.
Not taking directions. They don't want to take directions well. And that we all know, sometimes that doesn't end well.
No, it doesn't. And
I'm not talking about the times where it's not there, but sometimes it does not end well when they can't take directions.
No, not at all. And actually, that kind of they got to do the plug for you and 5 Up, and that's why we say comply then complain. And LaManda, I get pushback on that. Well, why should I comply? Well, I mean, all I'm telling you is you should comply, because if you don't, because we already know what's going to happen if you don't. I mean, because you might run up on another Chauvin, and then here we go.
Yep, exactly.
So my thing is, and just I don't know what I've mentioned before on my podcast, but I've talked to a buddy of mine. He's a crime analyst for Durham. In Durham, traffic stops to include a ticket ain't but 20 minutes of inconvenience. I figured you can check your emotions for 20 minutes and get through it. And if you don't like what they said or did to you, you can complain later. But 20 minutes is basically the average vehicle stop in the city of Durham. Check your emotions for 20 minutes.
I always teach my kids, is it better to be right or better to be alive?
Right. Look, one of my guys said, I know you want to be right, but I don't want you to be dead right.
Exactly. And so that also goes back to teaching kids how to advocate for themselves. Because you in that moment is not the time for you to advocate. The proper way to advocate is going through the proper channels and the proper avenues. And the proper avenues is not to be advocating right then and there while you've been stopped by the cop. The proper avenues is, get the squad number, figure out who you need to file your complaint or whatever you need to do. But in that moment, your major thing is to get safely where you need to go.
Exactly. But, that whole thing, LaManda, about being the hub for the family, I mean, that, you're doing work as to how to recognize and how to have these conversations. I mean, just to recognize those emotions and what to do with it. I mean, that's just huge that your school is helping with that, because that translate beyond you and as they go through life, because now they go, oh, there's another way. You mean I don't have to yell and scream, or I don't have to put my hands on folks? I mean, that's just another tool in the toolbox.
It's another tool in the toolbox. And it's funny because we get a lot of parents that other schools have kind of kicked out. And so,
right.
But we work with parents too. We actually work with parents too. I'm not going to let you abuse my staff and myself, but we're going to work with you too. We're going to let you get it all out, as long as you're not touching any of us. And then when we talk, because the next time you come up here, we're not going to have this, but we're going to talk it out.
Right.
But I'm not going to call the po and all that on you. No, we're going to figure it out. Figure this out. Right.
I mean, you and your staff are setting the example. This is how you solve problems. We heard you, and willing to listen to you, and now let's sit down and figure out how we're gonna fix this and work together. And people, but LaManda, it's got to be. How is that for you? Because you and your staff are only. I know you said some of your staff will go check in on the kids, though. But still, though, as a teacher, there's a limit.
There is a limit.
So because you only have them for how many X amount of hours you have in a day, and then the real influence is the folks that going home to. I mean, what is that?
One of the things when we had COVID, that was my biggest worry, because COVID meant that my students were not with us most of the day, because on the school year they're with you most of the day.
Right.
When
Okay.
COVID hit, they were not with me with us most of the day, and that's what we was
Right.
mostly worried about.
Right.
And so whatever
Right.
situation they were in it for a long time. And
Wow.
so we were one of those schools that like, hey, we want our kids back. I mean, I know some schools had teachers pushing back that didn't want to come back in. My teachers like, when can we get back in there?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They
Wow.
were like, how can we get back in there? How safe we can be being in there, and we need all our students.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's compassion. That's passionate. Andrew, you got anything? Because I got a question I want to ask Amanda.
I was just thinking about some of the things that she was saying, and it was related to something I said in the last podcast about like the cultivation theory and just how when students or younger children see certain mass media images throughout, and it's kind of they cultivating that image of themselves within their own minds as well too. And I also wanted to mention mimicry as well too, because something that you're mentioning is like when we suspend students or our students are going through things, we don't know where it's coming from, where they source this information or this mindset from. So it's like they're mimicking whatever they're seeing, whether it be in their household, with a distant aunt, uncle. Like I feel like that's something that I guess we don't talk about a lot, just in public schools, especially because we always just assume it's straight from this one child. This is the problem child, but it's like where are they getting the quote unquote that you're calling problems from?
Right. You're right.
Right.
You're so right. Kids mimic a lot of behavior that becomes part of their behavior patterns.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah. And yeah, my producers they're passing down trauma. So hurt begets hurt, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just true. I mean, we all know that, but when people like, educators like yourself, when people, I think people need to hear that, because it's kind of like doing police work. Sometimes people don't really understand what it is that we do, and then we start telling these stories like, oh, yeah, I know that. And then when people like you are dealing with these kids that unfortunately sometimes end up in our system,
Yeah.
when they hear it from your perspective, that you're seeing this. It's bigger than a popo. It's bigger than it's holistic. It's
It's a whole
the entire family is traumatized. Somewhere something happened to all of them to create
all of
this,
them.
and this child is just all of that. And then on top of that, whatever else is going on.
We are part of a group called Peaceful Schools of North Carolina.
Mm.
And it's about 7 schools, maybe 8 schools around North Carolina that's involved in it. And I am the only minority school that's involved in it.
Wow.
And it's sad because
Wow.
it really teaches, and that's how we've gotten so good at it, the social emotional learning piece. And what does it look like? It even goes down to even grading, even understanding grading, your grading system, and how that can break a student or make a student. It's so deep. You have a student, like you say, if a child is going through something for a whole quarter, whole semester, we're gonna have to create another way to reach that child and educate them. So you're gonna have a little bit more empathy when you're trying to grade them, because for them, you giving them an F at that point, they don't care, because right now
Right.
you're not the most important thing to them.
Right. So
Just understanding that.
oh, okay. So how do you hire for those? I mean, how do we get? I mean, just like they're trying to say, well, you need to hire the right people to eat a popo. How do you hire? How do you hire educators, LaManda, that you can recognize that they're doing it because that's their walk? I mean, how do you bring
First
them into
off, I throw away all them canned questions they always train you to ask on energy.
Right. Yeah, let's be real. Let's talk about this, right?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I can teach people, and I have coaches, instructional coaches. We can teach you curriculum and actually how to teach. We're more interested in your heart and why are you choosing this school? Because we don't hide who we are. Why would you choose to be here? What brings you here? What has been your walk up to now? Because to understand, try to see, do you understand who you are as a person? Because sometimes I make a mistake. Somebody comes with a whole lot of baggage as a teacher, and sometimes because teachers, there's some teachers that got to go too. So
Right.
Administrators that have to go too.
Right.
So
Right. Wow. So tell me a little bit about the peaceful school thing. I mean, how is it? I mean, was this something somebody told you about, or was this something that
Yes,
you
I
already
walked
knew
into
about?
it. The school that I'm at already was a part of it for just
Okay.
1 year, but
Okay.
they weren't really serious about it when I got
Okay.
there.
Okay.
And I sat down and I met with them, and they had a psychoanalytic team that was on board. I believe out of Duke it was. And when I sat down, they really explained it's not a program. No, this is
Okay.
not
All
about
right.
programming.
Okay.
This is about really understanding how to, and I say do the social emotional learning, because my social emotional learning might not look like someone who's over in Raleigh's, coming with a different demographics, but just understanding what social emotional learning should look like in your school, and it's
Okay.
beginning to understand the families and the students you serve, um, mind, body, and soul,
Wow.
coming from it. That's why I say the holistic approach to education. Um,
Wow.
and
Wow.
you can't separate them with our kids. We have to do it all for our kids. Unfortunately, we have to do it all because some of them not getting any of it. So
Yeah.
we have to do, a mind, body, soul type of approach with our students.
So
It
how
is
successful how successful is your school?
we now
I
we
mean,
grow
oh, wait a minute, let me rephrase that. Let me rephrase that question.
because where we go, we start saying grow. We say how successful. We start with
Yeah, no. What is it that you consider successful for the students in your school? That's what I want to ask.
two things. Of course, we always want our students to be academically sound, and so we're able to reach the academic growth and the year after year, constantly what the state set for us. We're able to reach the academic growth. But for me, success is in when my suspension rate when I first got there was high, in and out. Because I think even when you in school suspension, it's a suspension. You're not getting your
Right,
instruction.
right.
So in school and out of school was very high when I first got there. And success for me was before COVID hit. Our out of school suspension maybe was 5 people before we got out for COVID. So the last year, 2020,
Mm-hmm.
but 2019, 2020, we only had 5 people out of school suspension
As compared
for the year.
to
For the year, that's for the year, for the entire
okay.
year.
So, but you were in double digits prior to that.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
When
Okay.
it started slowly declining. When I first got there, I don't even know how many. It was so many. I can't even remember.
Oh wow.
It was
Wow.
it was a lot. It was a lot.
Well, good for you.
But getting it down, we had to sit and think because we keep the paperwork. But we was like, well, who did we send home this year? I don't think we had anyone.
Oh man, that's a good thing to
And
ask.
then, and then I said that was not. It was one of them was the same person, but same
Wow.
occurrence.
Right. Wow. That's so how do we get the community to understand that I mean, I know, you're at a charter school and again, I'm not bashing Durham public schools, but
No,
it's just about, for me, how do we help if nothing else, help parents get more involved or help them understand that you can go to your schools. But how do we make it so the schools look to the community like they're going to be helping?
you
I mean,
know what?
what is that going to take?
I'm gonna be perfectly honest. Whether I'm in charter school or in traditional public school, one of the problems is that the focus is so much solely on what the scores are on assessments
Right.
that they lose the essence of kids.
Wow.
And so the focus is so much on what you're going to be doing on this end of grade test, end of grade assessments, end of course grade. It's so much focus on that till sometimes they forget about the whole other part of the child that makes up
Right.
that.
Right.
And so for some schools and some districts, I mean, if you're not making it that way, some of the resources and stuff don't go.
So, I mean, I want to repeat back what you said because I think that's pretty profound. That the schools are just so focused on assessment that they lose it. They're losing
And it's
losing
not
the
their fault,
essence.
but
They're losing they're losing the essence of the kids.
of the kids. It's a trickle down approach though, because we know that testing assessments came down from the federal level, and the federal
Right.
level came down to the states, and the state pushed it down to the local levels, and it began to be more of a political. And this is my opinion. This is my opinion. Everyone's listening. This is Ms. Pryor's opinion.
Yeah.
They pushed it down to, I think a lot of it has to do with politics and money. And
Right.
it has gotten so big that the essence of children are lost. And so if children are not performing at certain levels, then I don't know if they take some of them, not really looking at, well, why? And so it's like
Right.
either
Right. Well, this has been good stuff. I mean, it's the schools. I mean, I think for me, and just from the law enforcement perspective, and the stuff that I've seen, and I see kids in these spaces, I see them in these communities, and they see things, like I said earlier, they seeing stuff that I still ain't seen and don't want to see. And we got to figure out, how to just prepare the schools to be able to receive these kids where they are. And it sounds like your school is
where
doing
they
just
are.
that. You just meet them,
It's,
because
it's
you got to help them, because if not, we just it's a they go whatever they seeing in the community, it's going to be repetitive, and the how it's
repetitive.
yeah. And here
And
we go,
it's
and
a
just
cycle.
it is. Andrew, you got anything before we start winding down?
Now that I could think of, I was just listening. Like I always, sometimes you just soaking as a sponge, but I really
I
enjoyed.
know. He always says that. I got to beat him in the head. It's like he's always soaking up stuff. I got to get him to start asking more
Love him,
questions. But
yes, I
yeah,
know. Because I see
but
his
yeah,
mind, you whirling. I'm like,
yeah. He is his grandmother's son, because grandchild, because she's, like I said, an educator. So she poured and poured and poured. So
wow.
he's the kid that was the one that would look at another kid and say, "You need to be quiet," while in the classroom.
Yes.
That's kind of who he is. So yeah, all of that. So one of the things I want to ask you is, what would a judicial system, because we're obviously talking about law enforcement and interaction with the popo, but we're also talking about the system as a whole. What would a compassionate judicial system look like to you?
Um, I would like to see the judicial system start at lower age. I think we can't wait to, I know fourth grade sometimes is where they kind of start. I think we need to go down lower, because by the
Mm,
time they get to fourth grade, they've already formed so many different bad habits. Um, I think we need to, and I say start lower because you can create that bond of trust with them at a younger age between the two. Because some kids are coming up not trusting the traditional system just from what they've heard and what they've seen. And so I think if we can start at a younger age, compassion would look like having programs that when kids are in trouble or have other, I guess, like he said, more mental poverty, education, and mental, just more programs to attack each one of the things. I think your prior guest said
yeah,
about what he sees. So that's the same things we see in the schools.
right,
So having
right.
that mental piece is so crucial.
And I want everybody to make sure that you heard that she teaches K through 8,
Yes.
and she just said she's seen the same thing that our previous guest talked about: poverty, lack of education, and mental health stuff. K through 8, y'all, dealing with mental health issues. K through 8.
Eight.
That let
Real,
that just
y'all.
got yeah. Let that just sit with you for just a second. K through 8. And yeah, we gotta refocus again. Like I said, stay on top of the popo. There's work to be done, still to be done. And there's a lot of, but we also got to make sure we're mindful of those who are going to be our future leaders, and
Yes.
taking care of them, making sure they're safe. And as you said, we don't want to lose the essence of our children that are coming up behind us. So yeah, I this has been another powerful one. I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you for inviting me.
Again, yeah, no, I mean, I've always wanted to have an educator on here because we can talk real. Because, like I said, police officers and as far as and teachers, we see it. We,
Yes.
we on the ground. We see it. We see it raw. There's nothing sugar coated about the stuff that you're seeing these kids and their families having to go through to do. And I think we need to have more people like you that are willing to speak truth to power, about what this is real. This is real. This is real. K through 8 having mental health issues. Come on,
Yes.
y'all. Traumatized. Yeah, traumatized. So let's just recognize that and figure out what we need to do that in each individual communities and address those issues. So thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much. So thank you.
Thank you all.
Coming and being on the show.
Of course,
Andrew,
anytime.
thank you. Well, don't say that. Andrew, you got any parting words?
Nothing, not necessarily. I just really enjoyed hearing you discuss the work that you do. Like my aunt said, I'm the grandchild and the son of both educators. So
That's right. Yeah.
I see the work that you do for like face to face and wholeheartedly. So I appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much. And again, congratulations, because that's where it starts.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. So thank you again to Ms. LaManda Pryor coming and joining us and having this very real, raw conversation about, education, what we need to do, and the fact that, the school should be a hub for the entire family. So let's just think about that. So as always, for those of you that joined us for the first time, thank you. Hope you'll come back and listen to us again. And for those who are faithful to listening to us regularly, thanks again. And as always, stay well, stay cool, and peace.